watching Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me live on the phone, I welcome from the Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board Executive Director David Augustinho. David, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. What a lovely day.
Beautiful day out there. So, David, let's jump right into it. Let's talk a little bit about the latest employment numbers. Tell me how the job picture is looking here on the Cape and Islands.
Well, the job picture is looking pretty good. There are a lot of people working. The unemployment rate for the Cape and Islands is only 4.3%, which is for May, which is down from 5.2% in April, and in May of 2015 it was 5.6%. So we're over a full percentage point better employment picture than we were at the same time last year. So we're doing pretty well. The state is at 3.8%. So we're just following kind of the national and state pattern of getting to be pretty much full employment.
Absolutely. And so do we attribute anything to these increase in numbers? Obviously, here on Cape Cod, as we're getting into the summer season, we certainly see an improvement in the amount of people that are employed. But are there any particular, particular indicators that tell us why these numbers continue to improve?
I think it's in large part that, we're just enjoying a great economy as far as jobs go. The recovery from the Great Recession of 2008-2009 is complete, where nationally we've had close to 75 months of increased employment every month. Even though last month's job figures were kind of low, the economy only added about 38,000 jobs last month, but there has to come some point where we're not going to be able to create a couple 100,000 jobs a month, just because there's not going to be enough workers to fill those jobs.
Absolutely.
So, and I think locally, as we've talked about before, I think the construction industries are back to where they were before the Great Recession, and they're still looking to add more jobs. So I think that's one of the drivers that makes it better this year than it was last year.
Absolutely. And I think if I remember correctly, you recently attended the annual meeting of the Cape and Islands Home Builders and Remodelers Association. I'm sure hearing reports from them, that there are more jobs in that industry and that they are looking for qualified, talented individuals to join, that field.
Absolutely. And we helped them with that. It's funny. I was on a panel, and one of the suggestions that we came up with was that we need to do a better job of reaching younger kids essentially in elementary school, and making sure that they understand that the trades are a pretty good choice for careers. That the trades pay very well. The jobs are pretty good especially in the Cape and Islands region, and it's a pretty good occupation. And in that regard, Sarah, we talked before, we're working with the home builders and remodelers. Last year was our inaugural construction career day, and we brought over 200 high school students, juniors and sophomores, and I think some seniors. We did it out at the fairgrounds out in Falmouth, and we had over 30 exhibitors to show young people exactly what the careers look like in the construction industry. And we're going to do the same thing this year. I think we're going to try to bring in a bit of a younger demographic, go down to those 8th and 9th graders also, and see if we can interest them in the construction trades.
Great. And I would think that, still with the kids in high school, it's kind of too young to kind of look at any data to see if that has actually translated into employment. But certainly, I think we'll be able to see the fruits of that in a couple of years.
Yeah, and where we'll see it is employers will say, gosh, we're not having as much difficulty hiring carpenters and blah, blah, blah. Because I think what happens, Sarah, is for for us, as the CCYP, and it was great to hear you kind of keynote as a speaker at the CCYP breakfast last week. But we're losing that younger demographic that's going off to college. But the young people who are staying here tend to be not pursuing a 4-year degree. So construction industries and the trades are excellent choices for them as opposed to retail and even hospitality, especially starting out. I mean, they're a good job. I mean, retail and hospitality can pay pretty well after you've been at it for a number of years, but they certainly can't match the starting wages and short-term growth in the construction trades.
Absolutely, really a lot of opportunity to move up, and there's I think that's something people don't think about a lot in the construction industry. It's like, oh, I'm just going to go bang nails, but you really can do that, and you can move up to a supervisor, you can move up to a foreman, you can become a contractor. So there's lots of opportunity there for someone just starting out.
Absolutely, we worked with Cape Associates last year. Lindsay Cole is on the WIB board of directors, and we worked with them, and they got a workforce training fund grant. So they're training carpenters so that they can become supervisors and move up. Cape Associates is one of the largest builders in the region, so of course they have more opportunities. But the point is that you're absolutely right. There's plenty of opportunity to be a construction supervisor. That's a licensed construction supervisor, or to just be running a crew for a construction company.
Great. David, so what I understand too is that the Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board, you guys are having your annual meeting. Is it this week? Or next week coming up?
It's tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, and we're doing it over at Thurwood Place, the Davenport Company's retirement community, and we're really looking forward to it.
Wonderful. What can you preview anything about what's going to go on at that annual meeting? Nice that it's a morning meeting. I think a lot of these annual meetings take place in the evening. Morning is always good to get things done. What kind of things will you be showing off at the annual meeting this year?
Well, we like to, our board, we work a lot, and you look at a lot of statistics and that kind of stuff. So at our annual meeting, we always like to feature some human interest stories. So we're going to have, I think, 3 of our school to careers students that will be speaking, and hopefully, I think we have an employer, someone who employs interns, and we also have an adult enrollee in one of our programs, and I think the employer that wound up hiring her. So we'll have a nice cross section of individuals who'll be able to speak to the way that their lives have been transformed, essentially, through the interventions of career opportunities and the Workforce Investment Board. I remember a couple of years ago, Sarah, we had a featured speaker, and it was a young woman. She had inherited fishing boats, and she loved being in the fishing industry, but she could see the handwriting on the wall. It was very difficult and stuff. And she came to us. We retrained her. She became an RN. So now she was an RN. She was making more money than I was, I think, at the time. but just for her to be able to articulate the transformation in her life just through training, I think, it's the kind of stuff that my board members really need to hear, because like as I said before, we do a lot, and when you can put a face on some of the actions that we're engaged in, it really helps to drive home the point that we change lives.
Absolutely, and I think so important for the community to really hear, and I love the fact that we'll have people who are directly impacted by the services provided over there. That must feel pretty good, David.
Well, it does. It helps get me out of bed in the morning.
So anything else coming down the pike? I think always this time of year, the annual meeting time of year, is not only a time to reflect, but also a time to look forward. So do you have any goals set for the coming year in terms of what you'd like to see the Workforce Investment Board get accomplished in the next year?
Oh, absolutely. We have some imposed goals in that there's a new enabling legislation for the workforce system, and it requires a number of different activities. And not that they've changed the entire system. I mean, we're still going to have one-stop career centers. We're still going to have workforce investment boards, but we're going to have to RFP out for career center services. Up until now, for the last 15 years that I've been there, we've just been able to certify our operators, but now we're going to have to do a full RFP process. So that's a big change in our system, and the goal for us is to develop an RFP that will reflect the values and principles that we think are important in trying to deliver services to our population. So there's that aspect of it. And, you know, from a board perspective, we're always trying to keep our board engaged and to get individuals our individual board members to understand a little deeper what we do. So we have information sessions during our board meetings and other activities because, you know, unlike a lot of nonprofits, our workflow is not as straightforward as we might like sometimes. In other words, there are just a lot of levers in this system. You know, it's
Right.
we operate under federal mandate. The state has a role in what we do, but we're supposed to be locally administered and with local flavor to the programs we run. So there are really a lot of levels to what we do. So when we bring a board member on, it takes a couple of years actually for them to kind of get up to speed to the full system and stuff. So we spend a lot of time doing that.
Great. Well, David, I thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk with us, and we'll check in with you again next month. Enjoy the beautiful day.
Can't miss. Thank you very much, Sarah. Good to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye. David Augustinho, of course, is the executive director of the Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board. Time now to find out if those fish are biting. Captain Gary Brown joins us with today's Barnstable This Morning Fishing Report.